Hello and welcome to the movie podcast after show of The Last of Us Season 2. I'm here with my Cordyceps crew, my fun guys, my oh no, Pan's Labyrinth is back again. What? Oh yeah, the mouth. Okay, I wasn't sure what you were doing, Daniel.
That was
spaghetti.
That was the kiss. That was the kiss that Tess gets. The spaghetti kiss.
Oh no, the spaghetti kiss. Daniel, Anthony, gentlemen, how are you both doing? Anthony, we'll start with you. How are you doing today?
I am doing good. I'm super excited to talk about today's episode because I think, we had our review episode, which was very, very vague. And now we can finally get into this first episode and all the episodes and just break them down. So I'm really, really excited to talk about it.
Yeah, same here. I think the hardest part about when we release those review episodes is we're given this long list of things we cannot mention. And sometimes people will be surprised how obvious the things are, but also how we really can't talk about this. And then we record these reviews and people are like, oh, I don't know, you guys are being super vague, dude. And it's like, well, yeah, because first of all, why are you such a surfer, man? And then listening to this.
A lot of people in California are upset.
They're always like, yo, dude, Point Break.
You don't tell me anything, man. The Last of Us, there's a virus.
Virus.
Tell me more.
Yeah, man.
Also, I was called out last time about the pronunciation of Craig I said Mazin. I think it's Mazin. I'm gonna say Mazin now.
I thought it was Mazin this whole time.
I don't know.
Same,
but
we all said it. So
I'm
I think
a piece
Craig
of shit.
Mazin.
I will say Mazin this time. If it's correct, then
no.
I
always
right.
mispronounce names. That is how we get people to comment, Anthony. The more you mispronounce names, the higher the people get upset, and then they comment, and then the video gets popular. That's how it works, right?
It's true. The trick to engagement, just say incorrect things. I think that's gone a long way for a lot of people in power.
And of course, this game is starring Eli and Joel, so I just want to make sure we got that correct. Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm so good. Honestly, again, it's so fun to be back doing these. These were some of my favorite episodes that we did years ago. Like Anthony said, we have our full spoiler-free breakdown out now, which you can hear our thoughts on the season as a whole. Yes, we've seen it all. But now let's get into, each individual episode. Let's talk about the things that we couldn't talk about before. But yeah, it's funny though. We talk about the do not reveals, which we get sent to us all the time. And it is some very basic stuff sometimes, do not reveal that Ellie walks down a street and you're like, hold on a second. Why not? Why can't? It has nothing to do with it. And then you're also well, the game is out.
Yeah.
There's not really big spoilers, but also we know that there's a lot of people experiencing this for this first time. So if you're on this journey with us, we're not going to reveal anything outside of this first episode, but it's really fun to be back breaking down all these episodes because again, I love this world so much.
And I think that's really fun about doing these breakdowns is we get to really compare them with the game and talk about, things that we think the game did really well and things we think the show did really well. Of course, with the movie podcast, our show notes down below have all of our information where you can follow us, where you can subscribe to us. We will be having a Last of Us Season 2 spoiler room opening up on our Discord. So if you want to go ahead and chat all about The Last of Us, that's one of the best places to do it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this episode. Actually, sorry, before I do that, I apologize. I do want to quickly thank our friends over at HBO Canada and Crave Canada for sending us these episodes so early and allowing us to do this kind of conversation with you guys because we know how much you loved it the last season. And The Last of Us has been that game, that show that we have covered to death here on the movie podcast. Just as many re-releases of that game have happened, we have done that many episodes.
Oh my God. And we just got another one. This thing is printing money, so
yeah, can't fight them on that one. But let's just jump into this episode. So we start off right away, pretty much obviously with a little bit of a stinger from the last episode. We're kind of getting the you promised, you swore, and you all that stuff that happened at the St. Mary's Hospital. So we kind of get that. But we're jumping in this episode. We start off with the giraffes. We go right to the giraffes. But what I'm shocked about, and when I say shocked, I kind of half predicted that we'd be starting with Abby because it's such a question mark of a character who is this new person we're starting with? And we're starting with the WLF crew. And this looks like it's happening just moments after the last season ended with everything that happened at the hospital. What did you guys think of kind of starting the episode off this way, Anthony? When we first see Abby and the crew, the WLF crew, they're still Fireflies. They're talking about Isaac. They're talking about, hey, you know, what just happened here? This guy Joel came around and killed everybody. Like, you know, it's a crazy moment. We're kind of getting a bit of a recap. What did you think of this moment?
It was actually a shocker for me because going back to the game, it was her character, Abby's character, is revealed later on. She's kind of like this mystery, and you take control of her and you go through a certain segment of the beginning of this game. And so when you're introduced in this series with her and her revenge and that anger, you're just like, oh, this is such a different take. But it's not I feel like it's better for the general audience to understand who she is rather than being thrown her character in a mysterious way. Because I think the audience is going to need to know why she's going on this revenge tour.
Revenge tour, yeah.
Revenge tour. But yeah, like it was interesting to see all these characters that will be part of her journey. I think seeing her as the staple for what the series is going to lead to is also important, because we know who Ellie is, we know who Joel is, but Abby is going to be an integral part of series, season 2 and season 3. And I think establishing her right away will just help the audience ease with her as the episodes come out.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, you touching upon the fact of, like, when you're talking about a show, you're talking about a lot less hours to really get to the meat of what's happening here. And, you know, something that in the game we get a lot of is we get so much more world building, so much more character building. You know, like you said, you don't really get to play as Abby until a little bit later on in the beginning part of the game. And when you're playing as her, she doesn't have a name. She's just a woman that you're kind of playing as. So it's very, very interesting. Daniel, how did you kind of see this opening sequence kind of happen, and then we kind of get to a cut to 5 years later? So kind of give me that whole little bit there for yourself.
It's interesting. I think I again, it's one of those things where I'm being pulled from both ends, where I think I like how it's revealed in the game a lot more than here, but I also know that this is something that we have to adapt for a television audience. So I think pulling the mystery out of Abby's motives and that crew's motives right away, kind of showing like, yeah, they were done wrong. You know, we're picking up from that scene where Ellie's asking, you know, Joel, like, promise me that everything you told me about the Fireflies is true. And then you cuts to them at all the graves. We don't know who these people lost specifically, but we know that they lost, you know, their squad, their group of the Fireflies. So immediately we know that Abby is going to be that antagonist for Joel and for Ellie in the future. Again, I think the mystery in the game is a little bit more of a shocking thing, where this is given a little bit more I guess more spoon-fed to the audience. Like, listen, you need to know what this girl's motives are. And then we know right away, because when she's leaning down at that, you know, at the burial ground, and she's like, when we kill him, we're going to kill him slowly. Right. So we know that she's angry. She's coming for Joel. And, you know, that sets up the motive right away. And then jumping to 5 years later it's a big time jump, but it's been 2 years since the game came out. When you think of, you know, when the first Last of Us came out in 2013 and then part 2 came out in 2020, that was 7 years. So we feel like we've been away for these characters for a long time, where this is like, oh, it's only been 2 years in our real human time. So it definitely does feel like a time jump, but it's interesting to see how Jackson and everything has kind of evolved since we left them a few years ago.
Yeah, and we're getting treated right away to, like, Ellie doing some fight training. We meet Jesse as well. We kind of see the town of Jackson. We're getting all these things kind of prepared right before this big New Year's party that's happening. And I don't know why I don't fully remember in the game. Was it also supposed to be a New Year's party? I don't know why that part isn't sticking to me, or was it just
it's
a party?
Not explicitly, it's not really stated, and
Right.
It's also something that happens so much later in the game. Like,
So
it's
much
referenced
later.
right away.
Yeah.
It's referenced right away in the game, where, like, something happened last night, which we're going to see the event here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I don't think it's ever said in the game that it's a
New Year's party,
Eve
right?
thing. It's just a party that's happening. And I also feel like in the, yeah, 100%. I think it's just a normal party.
And it's a very iconic moment for fans of The Last of Us because it is also the second trailer that we kind of got of this game. It's a very beautiful visual moment that, we're going to cover in a little bit later on in this episode. But we get introduced to Dina, who a lot of people are theorizing we might have seen in, the first season. We talked about it as well when we were doing our breakdowns, that there was this girl that kind of looks at Ellie when they come to Jackson and she kind of runs away. Obviously, that was not Isabela Merced, but at least that was the hintings and workings of like, oh, is that Dina? And Dina is a very integral part to Ellie's journey and who Ellie is. And we see Joel, he's working on some breakers in this room, and Dina's kind of like, oh, like, what are you doing? Teach me about it. But then immediately kind of jumps into, why is she mad at you? And I think we all know who's mad at who. And again, it's been a lot of time. Joel starts to talk about how he's in therapy, and we get this really cool moment. What did you guys think of when we first see Dina and Joel kind of interacting? Because again, we're just kind of thrown into these characters right away. And Anthony, what was your reaction to that moment?
I think it felt so different because they don't really interact in the game at all. I think they don't interact in the game. I think it's just that he's there. Dina knows of Joel, but they never really have a conversation. So creating that connection is so different, just because in the game, Dina really relies on Ellie, and they go on a journey together, and that's their story. But seeing Joel and Dina together, and just him teaching her things that it would help with the journey that they're going to experience in a couple of hours and episodes. It just helps with the audience to understand what do these people do outside of Jackson, and what can they bring to this story?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I really love is that we're getting these moments in the game a lot more fleshed out and a little bit more simplified to really tell us like, hey, we're trying to tell this part of the story and we got to really speed it up. And there's a moment that comes a little bit further on in the game, and it's actually used as a flashback to a bit of a younger Ellie learning the ropes and kind of getting her training. And it's this moment of her with Tommy learning how to snipe other infected from a distance. And we kind of get that moment repurposed here, where Tommy and Ellie are out practicing sniper practicing with the infected in the distance, and they have a good conversation about Joel and the town and everything. Daniel, this moment being repurposed like this and kind of pushing the story a bit forward, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I think this is what we're going to see a lot of in this series, is we're going to see a lot of these moments from the game kind of remixed and reintroduced, and almost like a what if scenario, where it's just like, okay, well, we're going to get this happening here, and we're going to start building these relationships now because we don't have the benefit of a 30-hour story to tell this in. So I like seeing the things like, seeing Ellie training with Jesse and that other really big dude, and she's like, boom, motherfucker. Like, it's cool to see, like, okay, we're seeing Ellie wanting to train. She's small, where it's going to make sense where she's going to be able to fight and have more combat training, as we're going to see as this goes on. Joel and Dina having a relationship is something that we did not get at all in the game side. And I really love that Joel connects with Dina more. Right? It's like he understands her more. They watch movies together. Again, if you remember in the game, Ellie and Joel are the one who would watch movies, or they would make plans to watch movies, and they have this connection. Now Joel's doing that with Dina. Joel is teaching Dina how to work on circuits, and now Ellie is out with Tommy doing, their thing, and saying like, we promise not to talk about you being affected. So there's a lot of these moments where it's a little remix of what we know before, and I think it works really well in the series side of things. But I really actually like almost like how Dina's like the prodigal daughter for Joel in this. Like, he just connects with her more. And I think that also probably annoys Ellie to some extent too, right? Because Dina kind of sees right through Joel's shit, as Ellie does, but Dina also could book right away, like, holy shit, are you in therapy?
She can call him out on it, right?
It's like she called him out on it, right? And I think she thinks it's a good thing. And he's also like, embarrassed. He's trying to be like that manly, like fake, like, oh, like don't tell anyone I'm in therapy. It's like, yeah, it's your business, dude. But it's interesting to see these dynamics, remixed from what we know in the game. But I think it works really well in this case, because you're giving a lot of these characters a lot more connections with each other.
Yeah, definitely. And you talk about therapy, and one of the moments that we're kind of getting to hear is the introduction of Kaitlyn O'Hara as Gail. Just before we kind of meet her, we get a little bit more about the town, how it's running out of space, how Mel, who's Tommy's wife, really needs Joel and company to start building a lot faster, kind of getting everybody ready. We also get the introduction of Tommy and Mel's son here. But we get to Gail, we get to Joel meeting Gail and sitting down with her. He pays her with a bag of weed, which looks really old and gross, to be honest. It looks like really burnt up oregano. She's the wife of Eugene, a character from the game who we don't ever get to meet, but we get to kind of learn a lot about Eugene's character in a very pivotal scene, which also gets a bit of that remix later on in this episode as well. But we find out that she's a psychotherapist. She's not a psychiatrist. She doesn't, give prescriptions for medicine, but she'll at least be able to listen to Joel and understand. But Gail reveals something really big here to Joel, which, again, very different from the game and very powerful, and kind of leaves that lasting question. Anthony, what did you think about this reveal, and how did you feel like this whole conversation went?
Yeah, I thought the introduction of Joel going through therapy is interesting, because it's someone that you don't expect him to go through therapy. But the reveal of his character killing Eugene it was such a whoa. Like, holy shit, this woman is giving this man therapy, and she knows that he killed her husband. It is just, I don't know, it felt so like, as much as the world could become like this hatred, in this community of Jackson, they understand the stakes that are at hand, and we don't know why he was killed. We'll learn later on in the series. But it was just, I was like, man, that must hurt to be in a situation where you're helping the man who but killed your husband. It's always going to be on the top of your mind. And you also you have to help him with the situation that he's going through, which is, the whole killing of the Fireflies and running away with Ellie and not telling anyone that if she's been bitten and immune, and she could be the Holy Messiah to end all this. And he's crying because he's a little selfish in the sense that I have to keep the secret because I might lose Ellie, and I might lose, this relationship that I have with her, like my second daughter.
Yeah, absolutely. And just speaking about mispronouncing names and getting names wrong, I apologize. I meant to say Maria, not Mel, as Tommy's wife. Mel isn't the character in the show and in the game that we will be talking about later on. But Daniel, our introduction to Kaitlyn O'Hara, the legendary Canadian Kaitlyn O'Hara, we always wondered, I think there was a lot of rumors and speculation about when she was cast. We're like, oh, well, we know who she's playing. She's playing the leader of the Seraphites, which we'll get to as well. All of that, everyone had their own thoughts, and like, oh, she's interviewing Joel. Who is this character? What was your take on finding out that this is an expansion of the character Eugene and a bit of more depth to who Joel is?
I think this is a great addition to the cast. I think Kaitlyn O'Hara, other than being, a Canadian queen, is also just it's good to have a character that Joel could speak very openly and honest to. That's not Tommy. That's not Ellie. That's not Dina. That's not anyone. I think this is where he could be his most vulnerable, and it's nice to see him. It's nice to see Pedro Pascal just act his ass off next to someone who's also just incredible. And I think this scene is a highlight of this episode because you have just these two characters in a room. Again, take away the zombies, take away the infected, take away the action. This is some of the most thrilling parts of the episode because you are just glued to your screen watching just two actors go at it. And Kaitlyn O'Hara does this stare where she's just, again, you just know that she fucking hates this guy. But she also knows that at the end of the day, she wants to help him have some type of peace and help him because at the end of the day, that is her job. And if she wants to have any type of resemblance to a previous life of normalcy, her doing what she's doing for Joel is, her step for that. And I think that's what she needs. It's also funny that it's her birthday and she's drinking and she's drunk. So she's a little bit more on edge, and she's giving it a little bit more of the hard medicine. She's not putting like a spoonful of sugar with the, the real talk she's giving Joel. She is just dropping the facts on him. And it's a great scene. It's a really, really damn good scene.
You talk about stares, and this is, I think, a really fantastic Pedro Pascal moment as well, where he just stares right back, single tear drops in the eye, and we're like, ooh, we're just feeling it in the audience there. This is also one of the first clips.
Perfect, as soon as he left, right? Like the tear on the word, I'm like, that is an actor. An actor,
a thespian, if you say. It's a fantastic moment. I think Kaitlyn Dever, like you guys are saying, she is a brilliant addition to the cast here, and adds such a good, foil to Joe here, because she can really call Joel out on his bullshit and just say it up to his face. And as we get to find out more about her character and her relationship with Joel and Eugene, it gets very, very interesting. But we now kind of cut over to one of our first real patrols in the town of Jackson. Dina comes to get Ellie, which is a little bit different in the game, because we don't really, this moment happens a little bit later on, and it's a bit of a change. But again, we're getting a lot of remixes with the game here. But it's a great moment. What I love about this moment is right when Ellie kind of gets out of bed and gets to the door and walks out with Jesse, she does the knife grab that we remember so well from the game. It's like literally the camera angle, the positioning, everything is exact on it. We go out on this patrol with the. There's a lot more people on the patrol too, and Dina and Ellie kind of talk about Ellie's past relationships, and she's like, the other girls here who used to date, and then Ellie's talking to Dina about like, well, you and Jesse, and then Dina's like, well, no, we're not together anymore. So he's starting to find out a lot about the relationships that are happening within this town, and that's when they kind of come across a bunch of devoured animals, a lot of blood, a lot of infected. We're right outside of a supermarket. They go inside of the supermarket because obviously Ellie is not gonna back down from an infected fight. We get our first real like clicker neck stab moment, some stealth happening here. But then this is where a really interesting point of the game happens, where we get the supermarket sequence, we get a bit of the escape and the puzzle solving. But in the show, this is actually our introduction to a very new type of infected that we didn't see in the first season, and we get to see a lot more in the game. Are the Stalkers. Now, the Stalkers in the game, they're just kind of these frail, creepy. They're really just meant to absolutely scare the shit out of you. But in the show here, they're given a lot more depth, and they're a lot more information about really what they're here to do. So Anthony, what was your reaction to seeing the Stalkers and understanding who these kind of characters are?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is quick. We get the Stalkers later on in the game, and in this particular scenario, we see them in, like, they resemble very much what we experience in the video game, but they're much smarter, and they hunt in packs, and it's like, wait a minute, are these like raptors now? Are these stalker raptors? Because they've changed. Like they were always like the creepy. They hide. They're always peeking around. You don't know where they are. They have like kind of like these antlers that are the cordyceps antlers, but
yeah, like a crown almost.
Yes.
Antennas.
Yeah. So seeing them for the first time, and Ellie like going, what the fuck? Who are these? What are these things? And how do we
like run at me?
Like come at me, and they're like just staring at her. We're like, nah, we're gonna stare at you, and maybe someone from the left or from the right is gonna attack you. And the battle happens and the fight happens, and Ellie gets bitten, and she's like, whoa, this is such a different take to introducing these characters, as well as Ellie just being, we know she's immune, right? So seeing her get bit is interesting, because it's like, as much as I'm immune, I'm gonna let these things bite me, and I'm going to take these battle scars and battle wounds with me.
Yeah, I think the bite is a very interesting moment here, and then we kind of go from here to Ellie telling the Council of Jackson about the Stalkers and how they're really smart. And then we go to the dance. So Daniel, from the council to finally getting to the dance, the New Year's party, where we see some words are exchanged between Seth and the girls. Give me all of that. Give me your take on all that.
I just going back to before, like as they're going into that moment where they're seeing like the ripped apart bear, and and Dina makes the barbecue joke.
Oh yeah,
bringing the puns
back.
Some nice moments from the game brought forward. The dog being the employee of the month, really nice touch to see that. Dina and Ellie Ellie throwing a glass bottle to get when the for it to get to clear to come out. I'm like, oh, okay, these are like game moments. I'll be honest, I don't know how I feel about the Stalkers in the series, because they feel very much like something you introduce in a sequel of a video game, where I think the Stalker in the show felt a little too science fiction. And again, I know we're in a series where there's zombies and infected and these crazy viruses happening, but there was just something about the Stalker that felt a little bit past that line of like fantasy that I was anticipating from the show. But again, I could just be that I'm in the video game. It didn't feel off to me, but something about seeing it in the series felt a little bit more like, oh, this is a little bit more past like that line of like that series of disbelief that I'm willing to go. But it looked cool. It looked really scary. And again, this whole sequence feels right out of the game, which is really, really impressive. They're able to do that. This whole council idea too, I really like seeing who's on the council, seeing that people gets to, vote and have a say of what's
some
going
democracy,
on in the community. I think that's really cool. Yeah, there's some democracy, some normalcy that you bring back, and then obviously going to the bar dance, hearing the music, seeing the lights. Again, if you guys remember back, if you guys are E3 fans from back in the day, what is it, E3 2017 or 2018 that they had, that they recreated the barn from this very sequence, and that was still years from this game releasing. But it's such a quintessential moment, and I was really surprised to see it introduced so early in the series, but I was happy. I think like this is one of those changes that makes sense. There's a great Gustavo Santanella cameo with him on the banjo with the band playing. So I'm like, oh, he's getting a cameo again as he did in the first season. So there's a lot happening in the scene, and this is such a crux of the entire Last of Us Part 2 game. And as now we'll see it unfolding in this season of The Last of Us season 2. But yeah, I'll let you take over from here, Shay. But it's all great from here. But yeah, I think just for me, the Stalker is a little something that stood out to me.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Yeah, when you talk about the crux of this moment, this is really a moment where Ellie and Dina are dancing. They kiss. It's the first kiss that they kind of have. Seth, who we're kind of introduced to at this point of the game, and ends up playing a bigger role than I imagined in this series. Kind of reacts very negatively, very homophobically to the situation that's occurring. Where this is where Joel really pushes Seth, and Ellie's like, "You don't need to like fucking look after me. I'm a little brat," and she's just all upset about it. No, but I get it. She's going through her own things here, and it's a very valid moment. Really interesting because again, this is a moment in the game that we get so much later on where we see more of the context, but here they're really kind of giving it to us all at once. And then of course we start to see that there's some construction happening outside. There's these pipes that they kind of found, and they have roots growing in them. And if you remember anything from the first season, the roots are really the language of the infected here. They're speaking to them, but they're reacting. They're the telltale signs of what's happening. And then we cut to, of course, the WLF crew that we kind of saw in the beginning, or we don't know them as WLF crew yet. We know them as the Fireflies that were there at the end of the hospital. Abby and her crew walking and seeing the town of Jackson. How was this first episode for you guys? Like, what did you guys think? This translation, this first episode, it's about an hour-long episode. It's also the only episode where we kind of have a title to it at the moment called Future Days, which of course is the Pearl Jam song that we get referenced a lot within this series. But yeah, Anthony, how did your overall reaction to this first episode go?
It's a big episode where there's a lot of information given to you, but its pacing is super quick. Like you get a lot. You get like what's happening with Abby, what Abby's goal is. You get what's happening with Ellie. You get Dina. You get Jesse. You get Tom. Like everyone in this town is established. You are setting up the grounds for something that, you know, we were introduced to in the last season, which with those vines, kind of like this radar or sensor for other infected. So it kind of establishes something's going to happen to the town. But I enjoyed it. Like this is going to be a series where people will find it very quick. Well, very quickly, the series will kind of like showcase a lot of things, especially if you play that video game. But it's also thrilling. Like from beginning to end, you will be so invested because once episode 3 happens and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, you're just going to be like, man, this is going to go so quickly. But I was
slow down, please.
I think the performances for me and establishing this new season, it worked well. Things that didn't work well for me, I just find that when you, I don't want to keep comparing it to the game, but like when you compare Ellie in the video game, she looks much older. She looks more mature. And Bella Ramsey still looks like a kid. And even that fight sequence in the beginning, I'm like, this girl's going to get knocked the fuck out. Even though she knocks the guy out. Like, there's no way Bella...
Jesse even said, well, he was pulling his punches.
Yeah, but
He's yeah, because if he didn't pull his punch, you'd be dead on the floor.
Yeah, but like the Ellie in the video game would have probably took that guy out. You know, like she feels and looks and presents herself in such a way where I believe that this person can get through whatever is in front of her. Bella Ramsey, she still looks like a child with a backpack, and she has a gun this time. She finally has her gun. And even Dina, like they just look too childlike for me, and I think that's something that kind of takes me away from the series as a whole.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think when it comes to a game like The Last of Us Part 2, a game that, you know, we all hold so dearly here, we get very defensive when people start to kind of mess with how the game is done and mess with what we hold so dearly. Again, the people that are making this show are the creative minds and lovers behind the game as well. So you have to trust them. You have to go along with this journey. But I still feel a bit guarded when I start the series. And episode 1 really really challenged me into accepting a lot of things that I'm so familiar with the game, and I'm so familiar with how things go in the game. And I kind of just have to accept it and go on the journey with it, because I think for me, seeing Abby at the beginning is great, but really finding out her motive right away really threw me for a bit of a loop there. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how we're kind of getting to it. I do like how they condense a lot of what's happening in that first day at Jackson here, and we're getting to the New Year's party. I do like how they speed that up and they get that process going. While I do think in the game, it really adds a lot more to these characters in the story. What's really good about this first episode is that not only are you getting through so much lore and such dense work, but you're also having the ability to introduce a whole new character to this franchise named Gail, who has such a backstory, who is going to be really pivotal to what happens later on. It's not a very Abby heavy episode. She really bookends this first episode, and it was something that we're going to be seeing a lot in the series, as well as her role and what she kind of plays into it. And it's going to be very unique and very interesting. But yeah, to really introduce us to the Stalkers, to get to that first bite, which I still don't understand truly why we needed that bite. I don't know if it was to remind audiences again that
100%. It's just like, listen, this isn't just a fluke that she was bit once and she's immune. It's like, no, she's getting bit again. She's not changing. She's going to cut the wound so it doesn't look like a bite mark. So.
Yeah. So it's a lot of just kind of like getting the audience kind of back up to speed. I think I get what you're saying. I think Bella Ramsey, I think she's a fantastic actress and a friend of the show, but she doesn't look 5 years older. She doesn't look like she has had that pain that we know in the game that Ellie has, because Ellie is just super just like depressing and has a lot of angst in the game. Whereas I feel like this version of Ellie that we're seeing doesn't really have that yet. She's definitely feisty. She's got that anger in her, but I'm not sure if I'm seeing the whole 5 years later moral. But yeah, Daniel, please take us home with your overall review and reaction to this first episode.
Yeah, you almost think like, hey, there's been so many changes from the game. Why not just make it 2 years later? You know what I mean? I think that would have also helped
I see that.
bridge the first season, the second season. You know, the game took place in 2013. This series takes place in 2003. So there's a lot of changes they could do. I think this is a great first episode back. Again, it's establishing so much. There's so much that we're reintroducing to audiences, from the concept of what the show's about to these characters to the action. And the best part about this episode is that it's never boring. The downside of that is that there's not really a lot of moments to breathe. And when you do get moments like Joel and Gail, you know, having their moment, great moment, and then we're kind of thrown into the next thing. With this being 7 episodes, I really wish we got, you know, some more time to breathe, especially coming back into this first episode. And obviously we'll talk about the second and third episodes in the weeks to come. But there's a lot that gets established here. It's those quieter moments for me that really make me love this series and love the game. Again, as we say, not to keep bringing up the game, but it's those moments where you're playing and you're exploring. That's when you're really establishing and building your connections with these characters. When it's just kind of go, 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 go. Obviously, I'm loving my time, but I just wish I'm like, okay, let's take a breather. Let's kind of live in this moment a little bit more. But I think that'll be a recurring theme throughout the entirety of the series. But again, it's such a fantastic show. It's so well directed, and to see so many of these scenes almost one for what we got in the game, it's a dream come true for somebody for people like us who absolutely love the game.
Absolutely. Well, that was the after show for The Last of Us Season 2 by the Movie Podcast. Again, you've now seen the episode. You've now heard our thoughts and reviews on it. Join our Discord. Send us messages via any social media platform as well. Let us know what you thought about this, how your reaction was to a lot of these big pivotal moments in the game as they've now come to the show. Are you enjoying it? How did that first episode sit with you so far? There's so much to divulge in? No, digest. I don't know. There's a lot to
digest, dive into.
Dive in.
There's so much.
Dilute.
I
don't know.
Also, all the love that you gave us on our spoiler-free review. Thank you so much for all the comments. So that was a very heavily engaged with episode. So it's really cool to see that, and hopefully, use the comments down below again to talk to us, tell us we're dumb, or give us flowers.
Tell us we're dumb, because we can't hear that enough, to be honest with you. If you're wondering where is the Movie Podcast today, we could be in Australia, but we're probably not because we're back from there. But we could also be in Japan for Star Wars Celebration. So there's a lot happening here. You want to probably stay tuned right to our social media accounts for that, and because we're going to be having a lot of cool things dropping on there soon. So stick with us here, as Daniel always says. Stick it right here, you pieces of shit. Right, Daniel? That's what you say?
Yep.
Yeah, those are your famous
I have
words.
a tattoo of that, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. Right behind your eyelids, I believe. Yeah. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.